Hello everyone, this is John from RPGs and More. And in today's video, I want to talk about a gem of a role-playing game that used to be, I was obsessed with for a short amount of time, over 10 years ago. And due to circumstances that I barely recall, it fell off my radar. And then recently, thanks to a post on Facebook of someone else asking about the game, I was able to rekindle my interest using the PDFs I found on DriveThruRPG that I had purchased many years ago. All right, what game is that, you say? The game is QUERP, the quick and easy role-playing game. QUERP is written by Shane Garvey. There are also many other supplements and books that are written in a combination of Shane Garvey and Jamie Wallace. QUERP is published by Greywood Publishing and Cubicle 7. What's interesting to me is I was ready to say that QUERP was probably a dead game. And this is because the latest official release for the game line occurred in 2016, and the latest posting from the publishers I could find was in 2019, or was it 2018, when they were discussing, Greywood Publishing was discussing the release of an advanced QUERP game, which, as far as I can tell, has never been released. So what makes QUERP interesting, and why do I talk about it today? Well, when I had my interest reinvigorated for it, I forgot to tell you why it's not a dead game. So A, you can still buy the PDFs on DriveThruRPG. They're still available, and the price is not bad. Also, there is a Lulu account, or there's a Lulu listing for these games where you can buy a lot of the books either in e-reader format or ebook format, or you can order paper copies of them through Lulu. So, they are still technically in print. I have tried to reach out to Jamie Wallace as well as Shane Garvey, but so far I haven't heard anything back from them because I was trying to see, what the current status of the game was and if anyone was still working on it. Again, nothing back yet. But I have established that you can officially buy it, so it's not dead. All right. What makes it interesting and why am I talking about it? Well, QUERP came out in about, I want to say 2008, 2009-ish. And what's interesting about the game is it's kind of a mix between the OSR, without being officially OSR, and those choose-your-own-adventure books that we used to be able to buy, where you would create a character or have a character given to you, and then you would go through the adventure. If you agree to go down the passage A, turn to section 42. If you want to go down passage B, turn to section 65. That sort of thing. And then if you encountered a monster or some difficulty, you would roll some dice to see how you did with it, and then that would dictate which section you would go to next. Those games tended to have very simple rudimentary character creation and gameplay systems so that you could have something to play, but at the same time it wouldn't get in the way of just going through the story as quickly as possible, or as slowly if you wanted to, and then replaying it a lot, having some options for that. So I think QUERP was trying to emulate that style, and in doing so created something that now, so many years later, I look at and it feels very OSR. Old school Renaissance, for those of you that are not familiar with that term. Very much, it's not a clone of D&D, so I wouldn't call it a pure OSR kind of thing, but it is in that style. And what it is the game runs on 2 6-sided dice. The main mechanic of the game is you get your 2 6-sided dice, you roll them, you add a modifier from an ability that you have, and then that tells you what you need to have. So in a way, since most of the modifiers are between 1 and 6, it's basically rolling 3 6-sided dice, only you already know what one of them is going to roll. What are the ability scores? Why did that trigger me? Well, or why did that get me thinking? Well, let's go through that real quick. They are fighting, magic, strength, charisma, stealth, and knowledge. Not quite straight one-to-one analogs of the ability scores from games like Dungeons and Dragons. But honestly, they cover most of the things that you're going to encounter in a role-playing game session. They also have additional things to keep track of for your character sheet, which is health, mana, and your defense score. Your health is your hit points. Your mana is the points that you use to cast spells. And your defense rating is essentially your armor class. It starts at 10 and can go up to 15 using non-magical means by just buying armor and or a shield. So 2d6 plus your modifier to try to get higher than a 10 to 15 number in order to deal damage. All weapons deal damage on a 1d6 with a +1 or -1 modifier, some weapons getting a +2 modifier. That's very white box OSR coded in my mind, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of looked at that and said, oh, this feels familiar. In fact, it feels so familiar that about 2 years ago, I had started working on a OSR game system of my own that I was going to call 3D6SR. And my whole concept was to try to do an OSR style game where we replace the D20 with 3 6-sided dice for everything, or basically so you could play the whole game with just 6-sided dice. And I had gotten a bit far with it, and then I realized that I was adding a whole bunch of other things to it in order to make it into the perfect game that I wanted. And then I realized that I liked a different mechanic better. And so I switched out from that and doing something else for my own game. But the idea of an OSR game that using 3D6 or something similar has kind of stuck in my brain. And then I realized that this game kind of had already published it and made it really work. So I kind of enjoyed that. Now, the other thing that's neat is your magic user, or your magician in this case, because the classes are fairly straightforward. There's 6 of them in this core book. You've got the warrior, the magician, the barbarian, the priest, the thief, and the sage. Most of those are pretty self-explanatory. The sage is kind of like a mix between a martial artist and a magic user or a magician. So it's an interesting combination there. But that reminds me of kind of the wizard fighters that elves would sometimes be. So I kind of liked that. What's also interesting is the stat line is very simple. We've already gone through that, and then you have you add your health, your mana, and your defense to that, and that's really all you need. Equipment was done on a slot basis, so you would start out with, I think it was about roughly 10 slots, although sometimes less if you had a very low strength score, and each item takes up a slot. Some items take up 2. So it becomes very straightforward, very easy to handle. Buying a backpack gives you 5 more slots, thus allowing you to carry more stuff. Straightforward, quick, and easy. Really, really does exactly what it says on the tin. One of the reasons why I kind of like the system. Monsters have the same stat block. It doesn't change. There's no variations. They get some special skills in order to make them stand out. But all in all, Everyone's playing from the same rules. Everyone's playing from the same goal, and that means that you are able to run things quickly without getting bogged down in double checking. Oh, what does that mean? Oh, what does that mean? You write 2 lines of text down underneath. You write down skeleton, and then their quick stat line, and maybe one thing for a special if they have it, and you've got you're good to go. No worries there. It does really play very fast, it seems. I need to go through and play more sessions myself because it's been many years since I've actually played it, but going through the rules kind of brought back a lot of those memories. It definitely is quick and easy from everything I can tell. And there's actually a lot of supplementary material for it. There is one thing that I will say irks me a little bit. And I'm not saying this to be a negative person, but I want you to know that I'm trying to be as fair and balanced as I can be. I don't want to just sit here and blow smoke about something being the best thing ever when it's not. So please take this with the love that is intended and not with malice. One thing that this book has that is I feel is an artifact of the time is that all the text is on these nice parchment patterned gray backgrounds. My guess is that this was done to make it look like you're reading a fantasy tome. A sort of a nice little aesthetic choice. And I kind of get it. I've gone on record more than once on this channel about telling you how much I hate patterns or pictures of any kind behind the text that I'm trying to read. And that holds true here. I will say that thanks to the size of the text, because the text they have here is actually fairly large for a book this size, and also pretty bold in nature, and then extra bold in places that needs it. So I would say that out of all the books that I've seen that do this, this is actually among the best, especially because everything else is very clearly laid out, and there's not any point where the text overrides a picture. So I do say that out of all the books that have done this, this one is the best. I really enjoy the way that they have done their tables and their equipment lists and their ability list and everything else. It is a double column, which, for a book this size, again, this is the size of the book. A book this size, double column is great. When you start getting into smaller books, like digest sized, it starts being a little bit of a problem. I'm having an issue. I'm trying to learn Shadow Dark, and I'm bouncing off of it a little bit, partially because it almost feels disjointed because the text is kind of crammed into smaller spaces, even though it's a good size. But we'll go over that when I talk about Shadow Dark. All right, so QUERP as a game, very straightforward. There's not a whole lot of variations. You're not doing a lot of custom work with your character as far as ability scores go, at least not with the core rulebook. The player's expansion adds a lot more options. But what you are doing is getting into the game as quickly as possible, having rules that are resolved quickly, and give the players and the game master space to tell the story how they want to tell it. So is this going to be a heavy simulationist romp through a dungeon? No, but it's not meant to be. It's not made for that. It will be a quick white box Dungeons and Dragons style romp through a dungeon where your character's individuality is how you're playing them, not necessarily what their stats and special abilities are. As you play the game, you will gain experience points. You will then spend those experience points in an effort to try to raise your stats. Essentially, you spend a point and then you roll a die, and if you roll higher than your current stat that you're trying to raise, that stat will go up by 1. If you don't, then the stat doesn't go up and you stay where you were. So it can lead to situations where you can go potentially a couple levels without raising any stats at all if you keep trying to raise up your best stat only. Or you just are really unlucky like me, and roll lots of 1s. So that part is interesting and could lead to some unbalanced campaign play where some characters might be really lucky and have extra stats and others less so and they don't have a lot extra to play with. But that's something that you and your game master can house rule at your table. Anyway, that's QUERP. I do have a lot of the other books in the line. I spent some time trying to track them all down because I realized that I wasn't, after reading through the PDF from drive-through, I realized just how much I kind of missed thinking about this game, and I'm hoping to run a solo adventure for it. I have tried to reach out via email to Jamie Wallace and Shane Garvey in whatever emails I could find for them, which were very hard to track down so far, trying to see what the current status of the game is. I haven't heard back, so I don't know where things are at right now. Last I had heard, if I haven't mentioned it already, is that in 2018 they were looking to make a advanced QUERP, or essentially a 3rd edition of QUERP, I would think of it like. But advanced QUERP, it was never actually published. It's still listed on the website, on Greywood Publishing's website. The last official material for QUERP was published in 2016. But it's still on sale. You can still buy it. So if you're interested in the game, I'd say go for it and have fun. If I find out more information from the publishers about future upcoming projects, or if they're still working on it, or if they, have stopped working on it for whatever reason, if I get permission, I'll share that here in another video. But if you're looking for something that is OSR adjacent and allows you to get into the game quick without necessarily having to go through a lot of rigmarole, QUERP looks like it will fit that bill quite nicely. It also looks like it will facilitate solo play quite nicely, and I'm going to put that to the test in the upcoming weeks once I get a few more of my other projects finished. So that's all I really wanted to talk about today. I don't have an idea of when the next video will be. Obviously, there's been a lot of delays and a lot of other things going on. Life has been busy, death in the family, plus moving to the night shift really kind of messed with my sleep schedule, as well as my schedule to make videos for the channel. I'm going to try to make some more concise videos in the future to have less of a ramble. We'll see how that goes. Thank you for sticking around this long. If you enjoyed this kind of video and you want to hear more about the QUERP system, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave me a like. Maybe a comment down below. If you want to know, if you just enjoy this style of video with just me talking about stuff that I've recalled, then go ahead and subscribe, because I'll be doing more of that. Either way, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I thank you for staying and seeing this video all the way to the end. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.